I was bullied at work a number of years ago and it changed my life, apparently forever. I'm not an obvious victim, I'm a big guy, I was a regular triathlete at the time, even won one. All of that is irrelevant when you're in the corporate environment. There it's about where arbitrary power lies, so it can happen to anyone. Two very senior figures in a huge corporation, people I had trusted and liked, suddenly one day started pretending everything I did was wrong, manipulating what I said, telling others I was bad at my job, criticizing without examples, not inviting me to team things, and causing sleepless nights with constant threats to my career. When I eventually raised this to HR officially, they got me what they said was someone to assist me, made me impart everything I know to this person over a couple of months, and as soon as that was done, they got rid of me. I've never recovered, work-wise or from the trauma. I'm literally a different person now. I don't have a job. My confidence took such a hit that I never ace an interview anymore. What little work I've been able to do here and there since has been at half the rate of pay that I earned for a couple of decades. I don't smile, I rarely laugh. I was planning on buying a house. Instead, I am trying to raise a baby daughter in a one-bedroom shoebox. Because of them. They've cost me over £100,000 so far, and that number goes up every day. So yeah, I think of these two almost constantly. I wish I didn't, but I can't stop. And you know what hurts the most? I can't shake the suspicion that they don't think about me at all, and haven't since the day they casually upended my life for reasons I can't begin to understand. Why mention this? Because the evil done to me by these two lowlives is the entire point of Andor, and I've only realized analyzing this episode in totality that that's why the show resonates so much with me. It's a theme we've come back to again and again, every episode, every scene. Close listeners to my content may have picked up on an extreme, unusual level of venom from me when discussing this theme before.
I wonder if that's a little nod to how some men feel embiggened by being lent a small and temporary amount of power by a corporate system that will quite happily chew up your corpse once it's finished extracting shareholder value from you.
And it's a testament to the writing and Denise Gough's performance that somehow we still kind of feel for her when she has to do something I, and so many of us, can identify with so very strongly. Go to work with a bunch of assholes every day. The entire show is about the way systems, institutions and corporations crush your dreams, your soul, your family's future, and swan off to get promoted with an empty grin on its dead-eyed face. The Empire forgets because it can. The episode is called The Axe Forgets. That's an African proverb, and in the episode Skeen claims it as something his own world knows too, because that's how empires work. They make you feel like domination is the natural order of things everywhere. The axe can cut and continue because it owns the timetable, the language and the institutions that turn consequence into routine. The tree can't forget because the cut is inside the grain. The wound doesn't heal, something new and harder just grows around it. And the tree does the only sovereign thing left to it. It remembers. There seem to be two themes littered throughout this episode. It's packed with examples of remembering and forgetting, but the other word that kept coming to mind thinking about this is one I've just said, sovereign. Most people misunderstand the word sovereignty. Not you, dear viewer, of course, but many think it means flags or patriotism or being able to do whatever you want. Sovereignty means who gets to decide on something, and it is all we have to trade, all we have to negotiate with, when you boil it down. Sovereignty is who gets to touch you, who gets to move your bag, who gets to name your motives and tell your story, who gets to change the route, who gets to fly the Rono, who gets to remotely shut your system down, who gets to decide whose future gets destroyed, who gets to own the Aldhani sky, who gets to be in charge tonight, who gets to allow desperate men to leave their post and watch a celestial event, who gets to make eyes at your girl. So how do remembering and forgetting dovetail into this theme of sovereignty? Nemik's manifesto is the key. It doesn't appear in full yet, but this episode is its debut, and would you look at that, it just happens that each paragraph, well, almost, begins with the word remember. No mere slogan, this is counter-programming. It's how you beat an authoritarian system that survives by metabolizing harm into paperwork and moving on. It's his tools as much as his words. Nemik's navigation tech is an act of remembering too, in a galaxy where the Empire provides the maps and the computers to read them. Relying on an old-school star path is a claim to sovereignty. The Axe Forgets is about how people cope with sovereignty under pressure and how memory is how you defend or reclaim it. Just in case you weren't clear how much remembering and forgetting comes up in this episode, these are just from the first scene.
By the time you remember to sit up straight, it's too late. I'd have the memory to sustain me.
I've forgotten the precision of your predictive powers.
You've remembered how to mock me. You've forgotten my question.
God, how sensitive you can be. You're assuming he'll remember you.
Syril's scenes show what happens when sovereignty is removed and replaced with narration. Eedy doesn't ask what Syril wants, she classifies what he is. Something Skeen is also struggling with in regards to Cassian. She turns catastrophe into something educational, turns family into asset management, turns his future into a decision made elsewhere. He isn't consulted because consultation means he'd have a say, and that is a form of sovereignty. And when that disappears, his response is compression. First it happens with the Syril, the little round crunchy ball that looks like Ferrix, and again when his arc ends with a single face rotating in the dark, a target small enough to be understood, a problem that he believes he can fix. For what it's worth, and I've only just realised this, of all the coping mechanisms shown in this episode used to protect sovereignty under pressure, Syril's is the one closest to mine. I've compressed my world to this project, the upstairs lounge, something I can control, something that I now realise allows me to explore systems like that which I experienced. And look, April was by far the worst month I've ever had on the channel. I now fully accept this will never take off to the point where it can meaningfully support me, but I have enjoyed it immensely and probably needed it. Though I'm also aware I only needed it because this happened. Speaking of this little project of mine, we are around an hour's worth of videos ahead on Patreon, and after I release my analysis of the Eye on YouTube, things are going to have to slow down considerably on here, but not there, so I'll leave a link in the comment if that interests you. And what is Syril doing when he looks at the Syril, at Cassian's face? I'm not immediately comfortable admitting I know this because I've been there, but yes, he's planning diabolical revenge. Moving on. But primarily he's remembering. He's replaying the events over and over in his head. He can't not. He probably will for the rest of his life. He's also burning Cassian's face into his eyeballs so he'll never be able to forget what he looks like. He wants to see that face when he sleeps. I don't do that part. Don't confuse me sharing Syril's coping mechanism as sharing his morality, by the way. Although the last time I thought I had something in common with a character, it was with Tim Bloody Carlo, so make of that what you will. On Coruscant, Mon Mothma's sovereignty is dissolved without anyone raising their voice. At breakfast is dissolved through refusal, the refusal of a husband to stand beside her, the refusal of a daughter to accept her frame. In the car later is dissolved through the opposite. Perrin does engage politely and demonstrates that even movement is negotiable. A route can be changed. A name can be used like a lever. A little note on this, I didn't make it clear enough before how we know the route change is more than Perrin choosing a shorter journey so they don't have to sit in angry silence together. And a confession, I rewatched the breakfast scene and I completely misunderstood the first Cloris interaction, but it doesn't alter the reading of the later car scene. I thought Mon's "you know his name" was expressing surprise that Perrin knows, which he confirms in that scene. It's actually not. Listen to her tone, she's telling him off.
Driver's here.
Cloris.
Yes.
You know his name?
He says the driver, and she's admonishing him for depersonalizing his staff, a rich person's status move she finds a bit pathetic. Just use his name, you child, is what she's saying. So the car scene analysis stands. Him asking Mon for the name when he knows she knows he knows is how we know it's absolutely a power play. I am going to ask you something you know I know the answer to, and you are going to answer me. It's a demeaning move. He's making her submit. He's making her compliant in a decision she hasn't made. Listen to Mon half sighing, half snapping the name as she replies.
Cloris.
She knows him well enough to know the point he's making, which is that she might be a fancy senator of some renown, but he is sovereign in the household simply by being the one with the money and status, too ingrained in her life for her to be able to get up to things without him knowing about it. Whether that's a threat or a desire to be let in and support her is another story. That's high society authoritarianism in miniature. Your dissent doesn't get crushed, it gets politely and comfortably managed away. Mon survives by compartmentalizing. She keeps her rebellion off the record, unspoken, separate, deniable. That's strategic, purposeful forgetting, not lying exactly, but refusing to let things become easily legible to those around her. Unfortunately for Mon, when you rely on compartmentalization, the people closest to you can weaponize the gaps. Perrin turns her secrecy into a social offense. This is why the episode is full of domesticity, because domestic spaces are where power becomes intimate. In an authoritarian world, that's often where the politics of power are most effective. Dedra Meero is the Empire's immune system learning to remember. Everyone else in the corridor is moving, doing conferences, giving speeches. Dedra stops. She refuses to flow. She sits with the disorder until it speaks. Unlike everyone else, she can't ignore the itch in the back of her brain. Dedra is dangerous because she doesn't forget anomalies quick enough and sweep them under the rug. She is what the Empire looks like when it stops relying on its own amnesia. She refuses to forget the suspicion and move on. Contrast this with Ferrix, the episode's cleanest image of the Axe forgetting. The town is not treated as a community with history, somewhere that people died, in events where there might be valuable learnings, things worth remembering. It's treated as residue to be processed, an asset to be repurposed, a problem to be up and running in time for a meeting somewhere else. That's what forgetting looks like at scale, the ability to turn consequence into an assignment and move on with your day. In the darkened gallery, Luthen's struggle is internal sovereignty, the inability to rule his own nervous system. He has no control over the heist. The machine he built is now running without him and running with a rogue element he didn't fully account for. He is a passenger, come what may. Kleya is the one exercising sovereignty over him. Where she tells him to go clean some coins, she is forcing him to govern his anxiety so the mask doesn't slip in the morning. Her giving him the schedule reminds us that Luthen mimics the Empire's methods. Like them, he moves on because the timetable says he has to, while his survival depends on his ability to temporarily forget who he actually is, and I assume, forget all the faces of people who've died for him, or by him. And getting through tomorrow will mean forgetting what's happening tonight, just long enough to fall asleep. Gorn is the odd one out. Most characters in this episode are negotiating for tiny pockets of control. Gorn already has a lever big enough to move the world, an Imperial uniform in the right context. Everyone else's sovereignty is under pressure, but Gorn is the one we see expertly forcing it on others via what the Empire boils down to, admin, even making them want it. The Empire's sovereignty is procedural, so it can be hijacked procedurally. Gorn is the tree, but it's carrying an axe, and now that sounds like a comic book I need. And his fuel? A memory, of course. When Kimsey asks can he imagine what it was like with thousands of them, Gorn doesn't have to because he was there and he fell in love that night. Finally, to the rebels at the camp, the way they prepare to claim sovereignty tomorrow is through rehearsal today. The rebels rehearse sovereignty because they don't have it. Rehearsal is how you create new memories you need but don't have access to yet. How to speak in a different language, how to remember how many meters to the vault, the muscle memory of a specific march. Taramyn tells them outright it's about confidence, we belong here. That's a psychological trick and it works until reality interrupts it. When the TIE fighter screams over the valley, it teaches the group who has sovereignty over the sky, risking shattering their rehearsed confidence in a single deafening roar. Because theatre isn't enough, sovereignty in Andor comes down to the unsexy interface, the ugly handle, the left-handed man, the weight gauge the manual doesn't mention because facts and truth are the most sovereign concepts going. And no, as an aside, I don't really understand why Gorn hasn't told them about the handle either. Cassian draws a line early. Instruction, yes. Handling, no. Bodily sovereignty. He's a man who's lived in systems where you're corrected with hands and kept compliant through small humiliations, refusing to let the rebellion recreate that dynamic while it trains him. I also now realise Cassian probably didn't want the possibility of anyone feeling what was under his shirt. When Skeen holds up the Kyber and fractures the group, Cassian puts it together arguably better than it was within minutes by using the most sovereign concept there is, the truth. Tony Gilroy structures these 48 hours like a synchronized pressure test, forcing Coruscant, Aldhani and as far as we can tell Ferrix to share a single, suffocating pulse. Despite the light years between them, the characters are all hitting the same walls at the same time. When it's night for Luthen's anxiety in the gallery, it's the night before for the rebels' fear in the mud. When Mon and Syril are having their sovereignty dissolved over breakfast, Cassian is waking up to find Skeen is busy inspecting everything he wasn't wearing. This synchronization is the ultimate proof that the Empire owns the clock. It doesn't matter if you're a senator or a scavenger, you're all living on the same Imperial schedule, reacting to the same procedural tempo. The Empire survives by turning harm into routine, then forgetting it ever happened. The rebellion survives by refusing that forgetting, by turning memory into method and carving tiny pockets of sovereignty wherever it can, inside a marching drill, inside a confession, inside a roster, inside a name, inside a 1-second sunbeam. It's the episode where everyone is forced to control the same problem. In an authoritarian galaxy, you don't get to act unless you can first control the small interfaces of life. Your body, your route, your rosters, your attention. Remembering who you are when fear tries to invent a story for you. The axe forgets because it owns the timetable and can treat harm as housekeeping. The tree survives by remembering and rehearsing until memory becomes a method. At the same time, the episode keeps showing that remembering is not automatically noble. Remembering can become bitterness, obsession, paranoia, cruelty. And forgetting isn't necessarily useful either, not in the long run. The axe forgets, but that's ultimately its downfall. The Empire treats memory as a storage problem rather than a power source. It believes that by owning the timetable and the official story, it can simply delete the friction of the people it breaks. But as this episode proves, sovereignty isn't granted, it's negotiated and curated in the dark. It's held in the muscle memory of a marching drill, the mechanical click of an old starpath, and the quiet obsessive replaying of a holodeck bust. The axe forgets because it's designed to move on to the next tree, but the tree remembers because the cut is how it now defines its own shape. In a universe of procedural indifference, the most radical act of sovereignty is the refusal to let the wound heal over the way they want it to. It's staying in the disorder until it speaks. It's knowing that while the Empire owns the sky today, the eye is coming, and it won't be the bureaucrats or the managers who know how to navigate the fire. It'll be the people who never forgot the way to the credits, the name of the driver, or the thousands in the valley. The axe forgets that it's hurt people. It forgets how it's hurt people. It forgets what hurt is. It forgets how it makes you feel. It forgets what it makes you want to do. It forgets that hurt people don't forget. And crucially, it forgets how many people it's done this to. The Empire doesn't even realize that it is currently surrounded by a galaxy of trees that have been cut to the core, all of them growing back harder, sharper, and in perfect synchronization. The axe forgets because it thinks it's the only thing in the woods that matters. But when the time finally comes, the Empire will realize too late that you cannot build a stable galaxy on the backs of people that you've taught, through sheer procedural cruelty, never to forget your face.